Tyler Brooks never expected that one split-second decision on a rainy sidewalk would change everything. The single father was just walking home from his night shift when he saw a woman being attacked. Without thinking, he jumped in to help and took a knife to the ribs. The woman he saved turned out to be Evelyn Langford, one of the most powerful billionaires in the city. When Tyler refused her money, she found another way to help, offering him a job that would give him and his 7-year-old son the stability they desperately needed. But Evelyn's world comes with secrets, and Tyler soon discovers that the attack wasn't random. As their professional relationship turns personal, both must confront their pasts and decide if they can trust each other with their hearts. What really happened that night on the sidewalk? And why was Evelyn walking alone without her usual security detail? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The alarm clock's shrill cry pierced the darkness at 4 in the morning, same as it had every weekday for the past 3 years. Tyler Brooks rolled out of bed with practiced silence, his body protesting the early hour, but his mind already focused. On the day ahead, the small apartment felt even smaller in the pre-dawn gloom, shadows stretching across worn carpet and second-hand furniture that had seen better decades. He padded quietly to the kitchen, careful not to wake Milo, whose bedroom door remained closed down the narrow hallway. The coffee maker gurgled to life, one of the few appliances that still worked reliably in their modest home. While it brewed, Tyler opened the refrigerator and surveyed their options for breakfast. 2 eggs left, half a loaf of bread, and enough. Milk for Milo's cereal. It would have to do until payday. The broken toy robot sat on the kitchen counter where Milo had left it the night before, its arm hanging by exposed wires. Tyler had promised to fix it, but repair required parts they couldn't afford, and time he didn't have. Still, he picked up the small figure, examining the damage with the careful attention of a father who understood that this wasn't just a toy. It was one of the few things that brought his son joy. "Morning, buddy," Tyler whispered as he gently shook Milo awake at 5:30. The 7-year-old's eyes opened slowly, trust and love shining in their depths despite the early hour. "Is it time for school already?" Milo asked, his voice still thick with sleep. "Not yet. Daddy has to go to work early today, remember? Mrs. Chen will walk you to school." Milo nodded solemnly, understanding more than any child should about adult responsibilities. He dressed himself without complaint, a skill he'd mastered out of necessity. Tyler watched his son's careful movements, feeling the familiar ache in his chest that came with knowing Milo had grown up too fast. They sat together at the small kitchen table, sharing scrambled eggs and toast, while the morning news played softly on their old television. Tyler half listened to reports about corporate mergers and stock prices, a world that might as well have existed on another planet for all the relevance it had to their daily struggles. "Dad," Milo's voice was hesitant, "Tommy's mom is taking him to that new movie this weekend, the one with the robots." Tyler's hand stilled on his coffee cup. He knew what was coming, had heard variations of this conversation countless times. "That sounds fun, buddy. Could we maybe go see it too?" The question hung in the air between them, heavy with everything Tyler couldn't provide. Movie tickets, popcorn, the simple pleasure of an afternoon out. Luxuries that other families took for granted, but that stretched their budget beyond breaking. "We'll see," Tyler said gently, hating himself for the non-answer that they both understood meant no. "Maybe we can watch a movie at home this weekend. Make some popcorn on the stove." Milo's face brightened with forced enthusiasm. "Yeah, that'll be even better. We can pause it whenever we want." The resilience in his son's voice broke Tyler's heart. At 7 years old, Milo had already learned to find silver linings in disappointment, to accept less with grace that shamed grown men. It was a strength born of necessity, and Tyler both admired and resented the circumstances that had fostered it. As they finished breakfast, Tyler's mind wandered to Sarah as it often did during these quiet morning moments. His wife had been gone for 3 years now, claimed by a cancer that had fought harder than their insurance coverage. The medical bills had consumed their savings, forced them from their small house into this apartment, and transformed Tyler from a steady construction worker into a man who cleaned office buildings in the dead of night. Sarah would have known what to say to Milo about the movie. She would have found a way to make their home movie night feel like a grand adventure rather than a consolation prize. Tyler did his best, but there were moments when he felt the crushing weight of being both mother and father to a boy who deserved so much more than one overwhelmed parent could provide. "We'd better get going," Tyler said, checking the time on his phone. "Mrs. Chen will be here soon to walk you to school." Milo nodded and gave him a fierce hug that nearly knocked Tyler off balance. "Love you, Dad. Love you too, buddy. Be good at school, okay?" Tyler grabbed his worn work jacket and headed out into the grey morning. The construction job he'd lost after Sarah's death had paid better, but the hours had been irregular, making childcare a constant challenge. The janitorial work at Meridian Office Complex paid less but offered predictable night shifts, while Milo slept. It wasn't ideal, but it kept food on the table and a roof over their heads. The bus ride across town gave Tyler time to think, watching the city wake up around him. Other passengers clutched coffee cups and stared at their phones, most of them dressed for office jobs that paid salaries Tyler could only dream of. He didn't resent them their success, but he sometimes wondered what choices or circumstances had put them in those seats while he headed to clean the buildings where they worked. The Meridian Office Complex towered 30 floors above the downtown business district, its glass and steel facade reflecting the morning sun. Tyler badged in through the service entrance, nodding to the security guard who barely looked up from his newspaper. The overnight cleaning crew was already deep into their routines, the building humming with the quiet efficiency of invisible labor. Tyler's section included floors 15 through 20, executive suites where decisions worth millions of dollars were made during daylight hours. He moved through the spaces with practiced efficiency, emptying trash bins, vacuuming carpets, and wiping down surfaces that would be pristine again by the time their occupants arrived. Sometimes he found himself pausing at the floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out over a city that stretched to the horizon. From this height, the problems of street level seemed distant and manageable. Up here, surrounded by the trappings of success and power, it was easy to imagine a different life where $14 movie tickets weren't budget-breaking decisions. But Tyler had learned long ago that wanting a different life and being able to create one were entirely different things. He focused on the work at hand, taking pride in doing it well, even if no one would notice. Every surface he cleaned, every trash bin he emptied, was a step toward making Milo's life a little more stable. His shift supervisor, Marcus Rodriguez, found him around noon as Tyler was finishing the 19th floor. Marcus was a good man, understanding about Tyler's situation and flexible when emergencies arose with Milo. "Brooks, got a minute?" Marcus's tone was casual, but Tyler caught the underlying concern. "Sure. What's up?" "Building management's been asking questions about overtime costs. They're looking to cut expenses." Marcus lowered his voice. "I'm not saying your job's in danger, but they're watching the numbers pretty close these days." Tyler felt his stomach tighten. The overtime hours were what made their budget work, the difference between scraping by and falling behind on rent. "I understand. I'll make sure I'm more efficient." "You're one of my best workers, Tyler. Don't change anything about how you do the job. Just be visible, you know. Make sure they see your value." After Marcus left, Tyler continued his rounds with renewed focus, though his mind raced with calculations. Without overtime, they'd be short on rent. He could look for a second job, but that would mean less time with Milo, more hours of his son being cared for by neighbors and babysitters. The choice between financial stability and being present as a father was one Tyler faced constantly. with no good answers. The afternoon sun was slanting through the office windows when Tyler finally headed home. The bus ride back across town felt longer than usual, his body tired from the physical work and his mind heavy with worry. He'd learned to compartmentalize his concerns, to focus on immediate needs rather than the larger questions that had no easy solutions. Milo was waiting for him when he got home. Homework spread across the kitchen table under Mrs. Chen's watchful eye. The elderly neighbor had been a godsend since Sarah's death, stepping in to help without being asked and refusing Tyler's attempts to pay her for childcare. "How was school, buddy?" Tyler asked, settling into the chair beside his son. "Good. We learned about the solar system. Did you know that Jupiter has more than 70 moons?" Tyler smiled at Milo's enthusiasm. Whatever challenges they faced, his son's curiosity and joy remained intact. "I did not know that." "That's amazing." As they worked through Milo's math homework together, Tyler pushed aside his worries about overtime and budgets. This was what mattered, these moments of connection, the quiet pride he felt watching Milo work through problems with determination, inherited from both his parents. Later, as Milo played quietly in his room and Tyler prepared their simple dinner, he thought about the choices that had brought them to this point. He could have taken the easier path after Sarah's death, accepted his sister's offer to move back to Ohio where family could help with Milo. But this city was where Sarah was buried, where their memories lived, where Milo's friends and school provided stability. Some nights Tyler wondered if he was being selfish, keeping his son in circumstances that were harder than they needed to be. But then Milo would laugh at something on television, or show off a drawing from school, or fall asleep curled against Tyler's side during their weekend movie nights, and Tyler knew they were exactly where they belonged. The broken toy robot, still, sat on the counter, its empty eye sockets seeming to watch Tyler as he moved around the kitchen. Tomorrow, he decided, he'd find time to fix it properly. There had to be a way to make things work, to be the father Milo deserved while keeping their small world stable and safe. Tyler Brooks had no way of knowing that in just a few hours, one moment of instinctive courage would change everything about their carefully constructed life. The rain started falling just as Tyler's shift ended at midnight, a steady drizzle that turned the city streets slick and reflective under the streetlights. He pulled his worn jacket tighter as he stepped out of the Meridian office complex, nodding goodbye to the security guard who was settling in for another long night of monitoring empty hallways. Tyler's body ached in the familiar way that came from hours of physical labor, his lower back protesting the constant bending and lifting, his knees reminding him that he wasn't 25 anymore. The double shift he'd pulled to make up for lost overtime had stretched from his usual 6-hour night into a grueling 10-hour marathon. But the extra money would help cover Milo's upcoming school field trip. The bus stop was 3 blocks away, a walk Tyler had made countless times through neighborhoods that ranged from business district clean to quietly desperate. Tonight, the rain made everything look different, washing the harsh edges off the urban landscape and turning the neon signs into watercolor smears against the darkness. As Tyler walked, his mind wandered to tomorrow's routine. Milo had a doctor's appointment after school, just a routine checkup, but one that would require Tyler to leave work early and lose those precious overtime hours. The math was always tight, a constant balancing act between being the father Milo needed and earning enough to keep their small world stable. The sound reached him first. A woman's voice, sharp with fear, cutting through the steady patter of rain on pavement. Tyler's steps slowed automatically, his senses sharpening as he tried to locate the source. 3 years of night shifts had taught him to be aware of his surroundings, to recognize when something was wrong in the urban darkness. "Please, just take the purse," the voice said, closer now. "I don't want any trouble." Tyler rounded the corner and saw them in the mouth of an alley between 2 office buildings. A woman in an expensive-looking coat backed against a brick wall. facing two men who moved with the predatory confidence of people accustomed to taking what they wanted. Even in the dim light from a distant street lamp, Tyler could see the woman's fear, the way she held herself, as if trying to disappear into the wall behind her. For a split second, Tyler hesitated. This wasn't his neighborhood, wasn't his problem. He had a son at home who needed him, a job he couldn't afford to lose, a life carefully constructed around avoiding exactly this kind of situation. The smart move would be to call the police and keep walking. But the woman looked up then, and Tyler saw her face clearly for the first time. She was older than he'd initially thought, maybe 40, with dark hair now damp from the rain and eyes that held intelligence alongside terror. There was something in her expression, not just fear, but a kind of desperate courage, as if she was trying to talk her way out of a situation that had already moved beyond words. One of the attackers stepped closer, and Tyler saw the glint of metal in his hand, a knife held low but visible, a threat that transformed this from a simple mugging into something potentially deadly. Tyler's body moved before his mind finished processing the decision. 3 years of grief and struggle, of watching his son grow up too fast and accept too little, crystallized into a moment of pure, protective instinct. He'd been helpless to save Sarah from cancer, powerless to shield Milo from the harsh realities of their circumstances, but here was someone he could help. "Hey!" Tyler's voice carried the authority of someone who'd spent years supervising construction crews, projecting confidence he didn't entirely feel. "Leave her alone!" The two men turned toward him, their surprise quickly shifting to calculation. Tyler was bigger than either of them individually, but they had weapons and numbers. He could see them weighing their options, deciding whether this new complication was worth fighting or if they should just run. "Walk away, hero," the one with the knife said. "This doesn't concern you." "Actually, it does." Tyler stepped closer, his hands empty but ready. The construction work had kept him strong despite the years of loss and struggle, and he hoped that would be enough. "The lady asked you to leave. I think you should listen." The woman's eyes widened as she realized what was happening. "No, please," she said, and Tyler couldn't tell if she was talking to him or to her attackers. "Just go. Both of you, please just go." But it was too late for walking away. The second man, older and more cautious than his partner, had already made the decision to fight. He lunged forward with surprising speed, forcing Tyler to react instinctively. The muscle memory of 100 construction site scuffles kicked in, and Tyler sidestepped the attack while grabbing for the man's wrist. They went down together on the wet pavement, Tyler's size advantage offset by the other man's desperation and the slick surface beneath them. Tyler heard the woman gasp, heard running footsteps that might have been the other attacker fleeing or approaching. There was no time to look and see. The man beneath Tyler was stronger than he'd expected, wiry and quick, with the kind of lean muscle that came from a hard life on the streets. They rolled across the alley, Tyler trying to control the other man's hands, while avoiding the wild swings aimed at his head. Tyler managed to pin his opponent's knife hand against the concrete, but the victory was short-lived. Pain exploded along his ribs as the second attacker's blade found its mark, sliding between Tyler's jacket and shirt to bite deep into flesh. The shock of it made Tyler gasp, his grip loosening just enough for the first man to break free. "Tyler!" The woman's voice was sharp with alarm, and somewhere in the back of his mind, Tyler wondered how she knew his name. But the thought was lost in the immediate reality of trying to stay conscious as warm blood soaked through his shirt. The sound of sirens cut through the night air, still distant, but approaching fast. The two attackers looked at each other. Some wordless communication passing between them, and then they were gone, disappearing into the maze of alleys and side streets that honeycombed this part of the city. Tyler sat up slowly, one hand pressed against his wounded side, trying to assess the damage. The pain was sharp, but manageable. He'd had worse injuries on construction sites, though none that had bled quite this freely. His jacket was ruined, and he could feel the sticky warmth spreading across his shirt. Oh God, "You're hurt." The woman was beside him now, her expensive coat forgotten as she knelt on the wet pavement. "We need to get you to a hospital." "I'm okay," Tyler said automatically, the response of someone who'd learned early that admitting weakness was a luxury he couldn't afford, just a scratch. But even as he said it, Tyler could feel his strength ebbing, the adrenaline that had carried him through the fight now leaving him shaky and nauseous. The woman's face was coming in and out of focus, her features blurring at the edges in a way that suggested this was more than just a scratch. "Stay with me," she said, her voice taking on a tone of command that seemed natural to her. "The ambulance is almost here. You're going to be fine." Tyler tried to focus on her face, to ground himself in something solid while the world tilted around him. She was beautiful, he realized, but not in the manufactured way of television or magazines. Hers was a mature beauty, refined by experience and intelligence, marked by laugh lines and the kind of confidence that came from years of making difficult decisions. "What's your name?" she asked, her hand warm against his forehead. "Tyler," he managed. "Tyler Brooks." "I'm Evelyn," she said, and something in her tone suggested this was a significant revelation. Evelyn Langford. The name meant nothing to Tyler, in his current state, though later he would recognize it as belonging to one of the most powerful business leaders in the city. Right now, she was simply the woman he'd tried to help, kneeling beside him in an alley while his blood mixed with rainwater on the concrete. The paramedics arrived in a rush of efficiency and bright lights, their questions cutting through Tyler's. Growing confusion. How was he feeling? Did he know where he was? Could he tell them what had happened? Tyler answered as best he could, but his attention kept drifting to Evelyn, who stood back to give the medical team room to work, but never took her eyes off him. There was something in her expression he couldn't quite read. Gratitude, certainly, but also a kind of puzzled interest, as if he'd done something that didn't quite fit her understanding of how the world worked. As they loaded him onto a stretcher, Tyler's last clear thought was of Milo, sleeping safely in their small apartment with no idea that his father's life had just taken a dramatic turn. Mrs. Chen would find his note in the morning, would take care of getting Milo to school, but Tyler would have some explaining to do when he got home. If he got home. The thought slipped through his defenses as consciousness finally began to fade, leaving him with the image of Evelyn Langford's face and the strange certainty that nothing would ever be quite the same again. Tyler's eyes opened to the antiseptic smell of hospital air and the steady beep of monitors he couldn't see. The ceiling above him was white acoustic tile, water-stained in one corner, and for a moment he couldn't remember how he'd gotten here. Then he tried to sit up, and the sharp pain in his ribs brought everything flooding back. The rain, the alley, the woman with the frightened eyes. "Dad?" Milo's voice was small and worried, coming from somewhere to Tyler's left. "Are you awake?" Tyler turned his head carefully, every movement sending fresh waves of discomfort through his bandaged torso. Milo sat in a plastic chair that was too big for him, his legs swinging nervously above the floor. Mrs. Chen stood behind him, her weathered face creased with concern. "Hey, buddy," Tyler managed, his voice rougher than he'd expected. "What are you doing here? Shouldn't you be at school?" "Mrs. Chen got a call from the hospital," Milo said, climbing carefully onto the edge of the bed. "They said you were hurt. Are you okay? Are you going to die like Mom did?" The last question hit Tyler harder than the knife wound had. He reached out with his good arm and pulled Milo close, feeling his son's small body trembling against him. "No, buddy, I'm not going anywhere, I promise. It's just a cut, and the doctors fixed me up good as new." Over Milo's head, Tyler met Mrs. Chen's eyes and saw his own worry reflected there. She'd been through this before with them, had helped hold their small family together when Sarah's illness had consumed everything else. The unspoken question hung between them. What would happen to Milo if something happened to Tyler? "The doctors say you need to rest," Mrs. Chen said gently. "Milo can stay home from school today, help take care of you when you get discharged." "Discharged?" Tyler tried to process the timeline. "How long have I been here?" "Since last night." Mrs. Chen replied. "It's almost noon now. The police want to talk to you when you're feeling up to it." Tyler's mind immediately jumped to practical concerns. He'd missed half a shift, maybe more. Marcus would need to know what had happened. Would need to find coverage for the rest of the week if Tyler couldn't work. The hospital bills would be substantial. Even with the basic insurance his job provided, there would be co-pays and deductibles they couldn't afford. A soft knock at the door interrupted his spiral of worry. A woman in scrubs entered, followed by someone Tyler didn't immediately recognize, a middle-aged man in an expensive suit who looked distinctly uncomfortable in the hospital environment. "Mr. Brooks?" The nurse checked his chart. "I'm Jennifer, your day nurse. This gentleman is from the hospital billing department. He wanted to speak with you about payment options." Tyler's stomach clenched. He'd been through this before during Sarah's illness. The careful conversations about payment plans and financial hardship programs. The shame of it never got easier. The reminder that in America, getting hurt or sick was a luxury he couldn't afford. "Mr. Brooks," the billing representative said, consulting his tablet, "your emergency surgery and overnight stay will total approximately $14,000. With your insurance covering 80%, your responsibility would be around $2,800. We do offer payment plans." $2,800. Tyler felt the number like a physical blow. That was 2 months of rent, money they simply didn't have. I'll need to see the paperwork, understand exactly. "What?" Another knock interrupted him, this one more confident than the first. The door opened to reveal a woman Tyler recognized, but couldn't quite place. Elegant, composed, carrying an arrangement of flowers that probably cost more than Tyler made in a week. "I'm sorry," she said, noting the crowded room. "I can come. Back when you're not busy." "Evelyn," Tyler said, the name surfacing from his foggy memories of the previous night. "You're Evelyn Langford." The billing representative's eyes widened at the name, and Tyler caught the subtle shift in his posture, from bureaucratic efficiency to something approaching deference. Clearly, Evelyn Langford was someone who commanded respect in this hospital, perhaps in this entire city. "Mr. Brooks," she said, stepping into the room with quiet authority. "How are you feeling?" "Like I got stabbed," Tyler said, then immediately regretted the flippancy. This woman had been through trauma too, had probably spent the night reliving those terrifying moments in the alley. "I'm sorry, I'm fine. How are you? Are you hurt?" "I'm perfectly fine, thanks to you." Evelyn's gaze shifted to Milo, who was studying her with the frank curiosity of childhood. "And this must be your son." "Milo," Tyler said. "This is Miss Langford. She's the lady I helped last night." Milo studied Evelyn solemnly. "Are you a princess? You look like a princess." Evelyn's serious expression softened into a genuine smile. "I'm not a princess, but thank you for the compliment. Your father is a very brave man." "I know," Milo said with the simple pride of a child. "He's the bravest person in the whole world." Tyler felt his chest tighten with emotion. The billing representative cleared his throat, clearly uncomfortable with the personal nature of the conversation, but unwilling to leave with Evelyn Langford in the room. "Ms. Langford," the man said carefully, "I was just discussing payment options with Mr. Brooks for his medical expenses." "Actually," Evelyn said, her tone taking on a business-like quality, "I'd like to cover Mr. Brooks's entire bill. He was injured helping me. It's the least I can do." Tyler's face flushed hot with embarrassment and something that might have been anger. "No, absolutely not." Evelyn looked surprised, as if she wasn't accustomed to being refused. "Mr. Brooks, you were hurt because of me. It's only fair." "It's not fair. It's charity," Tyler said, more sharply than he'd intended. Milo looked between them with confusion, picking up on the tension, but not understanding its source. "I made my choice. I don't need your money." The billing representative looked like he wanted to disappear. Mrs. Chen stepped forward diplomatically. "Perhaps we should let Mr. Brooks rest. The payment discussion can wait." "Of course," Evelyn said, though Tyler could see she was taken aback by his rejection. "I should let you recover. I just wanted to make sure you were all right and to thank you properly." She placed the flower arrangement on the nightstand, the blooms filling the sterile room with unexpected color and fragrance. For a moment, Tyler felt bad about his harsh response. She was only trying to help, to show gratitude in the way that probably made sense in her world.